Crisis Radio, Webster Tarpley in Washington, D.C. Follow everything at tarpley.net, tarpley.net. Follow Webster G. Tarpley Twitter feed. And remember, for your Christmas gift-giving, year-end gift-giving, progressivepress.com, progressivepress.com. Go to the Coming Soon tab and pre-order Real Pearl Harbor Conspiracy. You'll get at least the promise of definitive study, if I do say so myself, on this topic. Anyway, the first political treatment I've ever seen of Pearl Harbor, taking into account defeatism, fascist sympathies, fifth column, subversion, and the invisible government, which, of course, is there, too. So we got a three-level operation. Kimmel and Short are defeatists. The crew in Washington I've been talking about there, Anglophiles, secret government, and Sir Winston Churchill, who, in the tradition of perfidy, denied Roosevelt knowledge of what the British were reading, which was the JN-25 Naval Code. See the Rusbridger and Nave study on that, but above all, see my summary of the entire thing, putting it into a political perspective. All right, so the British are not totally alone. We're told that at some point during this past night, the British had the Czech Republic, Hungary, and Sweden on their side. This looks like EFTA. Remember we had the inner six, the nucleus of what became the European Community and the European Union. That was France, Germany, West Germany then, and Italy, and Benelux. So that was the inner six. Then there was the outer seven, European Free Trade Association of the British. And it looks like this Sweden, I think, is a relic of the EFTA. Hungary, what I know of Hungary is going to go with Germany because that's just the economic reality. And the Czech lands, right, Bohemia, I think probably even more so, completely integrated into the German continental economy. And Sweden is the same thing. So I don't see this. I think some of the reports say that the British have three other countries with them. Others say it's everybody except the British. So it would be 26 to 1 out of the 27. And certainly all 17 in the Euro are together. But now, together for what? The Germans are obsessed with the wrong historical lesson. They're always obsessed with 1923. The Bundesbank lives in the hyperinflation of 1923, right? The great period cataloged by Bresciani Turoni, how the inflation reached $1 trillion to 1 in October, November of 1923, and the property of the middle class was destroyed. And as various writers, including Stefan Zweig, makes clear, this prepared the German people for totalitarianism, except, notice, the totalitarianism didn't come in 1923. The greater danger is the Brüning period, the 1930 to 1932. So I would say to the Germans, put away your books on 1923. You've understood that well enough, too well. You're too obsessed with that. You should look at a much more painful episode, which is the Brüning government of 1930 to 1932, which actually did open the door to Hitler and the loss of liberty. And look at that. And that's an austerity government, okay? That's a deflationary austerity government. And with this corset that you're talking about, these mandatory limits on government spending and government activity, you're putting yourself into a new Brüning phase, which will lead to totalitarianism and war. And in particular, on the Brüning, I just have to make these points. You need to follow Karl Ludwig Holtfrerich, Holtfrerich. This is the competent, reliable authority on Brüning and what he did. Do not follow Knut Borchardt, Borchardt, I believe, something like that, who basically tells you that Brüning had no choice. He had plenty of choices. He had the choices outlined by Wilhelm Lautenbach and by W.S. Voitinsky, the Russian-German-American economic theorist. And the key question there is the nationalization of the central bank making that the engine of cheap, long-term credit for great projects of infrastructure. You break the back of the unemployment problem, you undercut the demagogues, you put people back to work, and you build a modern, high-wage, full-employment economy. And that's what we need now. Now, just in the overnight, what I've heard is that Draghi, the Goldman Sachs agent who runs the European Central Bank, Draghi says, or at least Sarkozy says that Draghi will lend money at 1% to the Euro zombies. So if you're a European zombie bank, you can get credit, unlimited credit at 1% in the future. And the idea is that Sarkozy then argued, if you're Italy, then the Italian government can go to the zombie bank Unicredito or the zombie Intesa San Paolo and get a better deal than they'd get on these markets. In other words, instead of having to pay 6 or 7%, you're going to pay less. Wait a minute. Why don't we have the European Central Bank obliged to lend to the national states, but not for purposes of bailing out the black hole of derivatives? That's hopeless. Even the several $100 trillion of old collateralized debt obligations that we have in the Euro zombies is too much to be bailed out. You can't do it. It's in the hundreds of trillions, right? It might be half a quadrillion, right? If it's something we can estimate on the back of the envelope. But anyway, it's hundreds of trillions of dollars or euros even of these old CDOs and, of course, the CDS that they're using to speculate against their own currency. Why do that? Why don't you earmark the cheap European Central Bank credit for infrastructure production? And here, the people who do the borrowing can be whatever you want. The borrowing can be done by national governments. It can be done by Rome, by Paris, by Madrid, or it can be done by consortia, right? You could have a French-Spanish consortium to rebuild the fast rail from Paris to Madrid according to modern standards. You could rebuild various ports, or it could be done by other entities. You could create a European Works Progress Administration or Public Works Administration that would be able to do this, or a Kreditanstalt für Wiederaufbau, whatever you want to call it. This doesn't matter so much, but the point is that it's got to be zero or as close to zero as you can get on the coupon rate, the interest rate, close to zero. Long maturities, century bonds, right? Caltech has century bonds. Why not Europe? And, of course, only for infrastructure, only for production, only for agriculture, not for the financial services that Cameron is trying to defend. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.